You remember it clearly, the argument, the moment, what was said, and then they looked at you and said, "That never happened." Not, "I remember it differently." Not, "I didn't mean it that way." That never happened. And for a second, just a second, you wondered if they were right. That second of doubt is not weakness. It is the target. There is a documented psychological manipulation tactic, studied in clinical settings, validated across thousands of abuse cases, that works specifically by targeting your ability to trust your own memory, your own perception, your own mind. It is called gaslighting. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly how it works and why the people it works on are not the weak ones. Gaslighting is not a new word, but most people still do not understand what it actually does to a human brain. It is not just lying. It is not just manipulation. It is the systematic dismantling of your ability to function as a reliable witness to your own life. We are going to go through the 5 mechanisms that make gaslighting work: the neurological, the psychological, and the social. We are going to look at real research, and we are going to show you exactly what it looks like before most people recognize it. In 1944, a film called Gaslight told the story of a man who secretly dimmed the gas-powered lights in his home, then told his wife she was imagining the changes. He moved her belongings and denied it. He isolated her from friends. He systematically convinced her she was losing her mind. The film gave a name to something that had existed for centuries. But gaslighting is not a Victorian phenomenon. It is not rare. It is not limited to romantic relationships. Research published in the journal Feminism and Psychology found that gaslighting occurs across all relationship types: romantic, familial, professional, and institutional. It is one of the most commonly reported forms of psychological abuse in clinical settings. What makes gaslighting different from ordinary lying is not the content of the deception, it is the target. A normal lie deceives you about an external fact. Gaslighting deceives you about your own internal reality. It makes you doubt the reliability of your mind itself. Takeaway. Gaslighting is not about making you believe false facts. It is about making you stop trusting the instrument you use to evaluate all facts, your own perception. But the question is, how does it actually work? The answer begins with something every brain does automatically. Here is something most people do not know about human memory. It is not a recording, it is a reconstruction. Every time you recall a memory, your brain rebuilds it from fragments. And every time you rebuild it, you are vulnerable to having pieces replaced. This is not a flaw, it is how memory is designed. It allows us to update our understanding of the past based on new information. But it also means that if someone consistently tells you your memories are wrong, with enough confidence, enough repetition, enough emotional pressure, your brain will begin to doubt its own reconstruction. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, one of the world's leading researchers on memory, spent 40 years demonstrating this in laboratory conditions. In her most famous experiment, she implanted entirely false memories of being lost in a shopping mall as a child into 29% of adult subjects, using nothing more than repeated suggestion from a trusted family member. 29% developed detailed, emotionally vivid memories of something that never happened. They were not confused. They were not mentally unwell. They were normal adults whose memory systems responded exactly as memory systems are designed to respond, by updating based on repeated confident input from a trusted source. A gaslighter is a trusted source, and they are consistent, and they are confident. Takeaway. Your memory is not weak. It is working exactly as designed. Gaslighting exploits the update mechanism that normally helps you learn and grow. The memory is just the entry point. What the gaslighter is actually targeting runs much deeper. Gaslighting rarely starts with a large lie. It starts with something small enough to dismiss. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things. That's not what happened. Each individual instance seems minor. You doubt yourself, you apologize, you move on. But clinical psychologist Dr. Robin Stern, in her foundational 2007 work, The Gaslight Effect, documented the 3-stage progression that turns these small moments into something much more serious. Stage 1, disbelief. You know something is wrong. You push back. You defend your version of events. The gaslighter pushes harder. You feel confused and unsettled, but you are still fighting. Stage 2. Defense. You are spending more energy defending your memories than living your life. You second-guess yourself before you speak. You rehearse conversations in advance. You begin asking permission from the gaslighter to trust your own instincts. Stage 3. Depression. You have stopped defending. You have accepted the gaslighter's version of reality as more reliable than your own. You feel confused, exhausted, and fundamentally broken without being able to identify why. The progression from stage 1 to stage 3 can take months or years, and because each step is gradual, there is no single moment where you realize you have crossed a line. Takeaway. Gaslighting is not a single event. It is a process. The damage accumulates below the threshold of conscious awareness, which is precisely what makes it so difficult to recognize from inside it. Here is what most people assume about gaslighting victims: that they must have been unusually trusting, naive, lacking self-awareness. Research says the exact opposite. A 2019 study published in Psychological Trauma found that individuals with higher baseline intelligence and stronger self-awareness were actually more vulnerable to gaslighting, not less, because they tried harder to make sense of the contradiction. They worked harder to reconcile what they knew with what they were being told. The harder you try to understand something that has been deliberately made incomprehensible, the more confused you become. And confusion is the gaslighter's most powerful tool. Gaslighting uses 5 core tactics. Not all gaslighters use all 5, but recognizing them by name is one of the most effective interrupts available. Denial. Flat refusal to acknowledge an event, regardless of evidence. That conversation never happened. I never said that. Not, I said it differently. Complete erasure. Deflection. When confronted, the gaslighter redirects to your behavior, your emotional state, your history. Why are you always so dramatic? The original subject disappears. You end up defending yourself instead of pursuing the original concern. Trivializing. Your emotional response is made to seem disproportionate, unstable, or evidence of a deeper problem. You're too sensitive. Normal people don't react this way. Your feelings become the issue, not what caused them. Countering. Your memory is challenged not with evidence, but with confidence. You always remember things wrong. Your anxiety makes you misremember. The message: your mind is an unreliable instrument. Diversion. When pressed, the gaslighter changes the subject entirely, often to something unrelated that makes you feel guilty or defensive. The original concern is buried. You lose the thread. Takeaway. The power of naming these tactics is that it interrupts the confusion loop. When you can say, that is deflection, or that is countering, your brain stops trying to resolve the contradiction and starts recognizing the pattern. You cannot think your way out of an active gaslighting relationship simply by understanding what gaslighting is, but you can interrupt it. Here is what the research actually supports. Document. Keep a private written record, not to prove anything to them, but to give your own perception an external anchor. When you write down what happened immediately after, you give your brain something to reconstruct the memory around that is not their version. Name the tactic, not the person. That sounds like deflection is less escalating than "you're gaslighting me," and it keeps your focus on the behavior, not the relationship. Trust physical and emotional data. If you feel confused, anxious, or destabilized after a conversation with someone, consistently, that pattern is information. Your nervous system often registers what your conscious mind is still trying to explain away. Reconnect with external reality. Friends, family members, a therapist, anyone who can offer a consistent external reference point for your own perceptions. Isolation is always part of the gaslighting toolkit. Reversing it is part of recovery. Understand that clarity is a process, not a moment. Research on gaslighting recovery consistently shows that full clarity, The ability to trust your own perception again without anxiety takes time, not because there is something wrong with you, because the update mechanism that was exploited to distort your reality works the same way in reverse. It requires repetition, evidence, time. Gaslighting works because it targets something fundamental, your ability to trust yourself. And that ability, once damaged, does not announce its own damage. It just quietly makes everything harder. Understanding the mechanism does not undo the damage, but it changes the relationship between you and the confusion. Instead of trying to resolve it, you start to recognize it. If this video helped you name something you have been living with, share it with someone who might need the same clarity. Subscribe. We post every Tuesday and Friday, because the more precisely you can name what is being done to you, the harder it becomes to do it.